How am I doing that? Huh. Oh well.
I know Sarah's gonna press the send to YouTube button, so we'll be on the record for anyone that's not here. But that's such a cool maker activity. That's amazing. So you were just saying fidget toys for local hospital waiting rooms,
Yep.
cake toppers for people that can't afford birthday cakes. That's amazing.
Yep.
And then coming to e-NABLE. So I think as a newcomer to e-NABLE, you probably came to the hub because you found us here, and the device catalog is the best place to start. There's those top 5 recommended devices. Recommend you make one or two or a couple to understand the limitations yourself. And then once you have one, the certification process is, I think you might have been able to see it. It's you make a video of it moving, and then you
Yep.
get a badging system. The hub all works with badging. And then you'll
Yeah, I
be
saw
able to
that.
match with people. And at our university, we have a club. It's made like 15 to 20 hands for people that need hands, but it's taken a lot of asks per client. I think there is a disconnect between the makers who have the resources to make stuff and the clients who need the stuff made. And the hub is there to aggregate and match make between those two.
Yeah.
The other thing that I
Yeah.
would say that we always try to say as you get started is a lot of times people are pulled into open source assistive devices through e-NABLE. But as you start making hands for people, two things. One, it's less of a one and done and more of a bespoke design challenge. And if you can find a client you can get those feedback loops going with, you often get a much richer experience for both you and for the client. So to tweak it and make it better and better. And the two sort of design interfaces that are challenging is adapting to the unique physiology of the upper limb difference, whether that's from a finger or wrist, an elbow, or above. And then accomplishing an occupational therapy task, like a daily life task for that person.
Mhm.
And as you get into it, it's great if you can get feedback as things break, tweak, and make them better. The static designs need to be adapted a bunch for both of those. And then the other part is we usually end up realizing that what clients don't need is just prostheses, it's a better built environment. So you start making hands and then you realize we need better doorknobs. And
Yeah.
so we're trying to be more in open source assistive tech broadly, more and more hardware that can affect the built environment.
Makes sense.
And there's a few
Yeah, I
great
already
repositories of that.
I have one hand or she already it's printing as we speak.
Yeah. Wait, which one?
The Phoenix 3.
Yeah, that's a great place to start because the hardware scales with it. So you can
Yeah,
uh,
I'm gonna order the hardware kit tonight and get that going.
I think that they are great value. Jeremy assembled those all at 3D Universe, who's one of the co-founders of e-NABLE. He owns a 3D printing website, and they
Yeah,
sell them there. I think they sell them for like less than or at cost. Like,
yeah.
uh,
I watched his video last night on how
oh,
he
cool.
sets
The
up his
assembly,
printer and yeah, I kind of saw that. I just wanted to get as
yeah,
much information as I could before I went into it,
super
just in
cool.
case there was some little intricacy that I'm missing
Yep,
versus like the print process and slicing. So
yep. And you'll notice there's like a whole bunch of different levels of resources for each hand. Like some
mhm,
have videos, some just have STL files, some have written guides. There's not
mhm.
like because it's the open source community, the quality and amount of documentation varies a lot.
Yeah,
And which is why we have those recommended ones to start. But there's so many additional features in the device catalog to modify and adapt onto those core platforms.
yeah.
Super, which printer are you running?
I've got a bunch of bamboos and vorons.
Yeah, very
So
nice. Nice printers.
yeah, kind of the ones that everyone seems to have.
Yep, bamboos are definitely becoming everyone's favorite.
Yeah,
And the Voron is super fast. I was looking
yeah,
at those new the low cost Vorons that are getting passed around. The Soval
oh yeah,
SV08s look really like a
yeah,
nice way into the Voron conversation without like bloody fingers assembling one for 3 months.
pretty much.
Do you have a souped up one?
No, not really.
Yeah.
I haven't really seen a need.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a high flow nozzles on my bamboos, but they're, I mean, I'm not printing 1,000 things a day.
Yeah.
I would rather print one thing perfect versus 10 that are,
Super cool. Well, it sounds like you've got the couple first steps. The breadcrumbs I would lead you into as resources are two things. The Makers Making Change website and the Illinois Assistive Technology Program, which as you start thinking about this world and working with clients, you may find files there that help solve their occupational therapy tasks in other ways. Let me get the
Oh
other
yeah,
link.
there it is right there. Okay.
Yeah. So these are the other two repositories that we really like and are trying to promote people into thinking broader than just the way we solve upper limb difference isn't just through a mechanical prosthesis, it's through also a better designed environment.
Yeah. It's not one answer or the other, it's kind of both.
Yes. And then the magic of the 3D printer is the adaptability, the like iterative
Mhm.
adaptability. Uh,
Yeah.
but also the super bespoke customization, and not just for the individual, for their environment.
Yeah. So if they need like a narrower finger to poke something that's a little bit more fine, you can narrow that down and yeah.
Yeah, totally.
And that's one of the things that drew me to this was not only to be able to help them, which is amazing, but to be able to help them in a way that maybe they didn't think they could be helped.
Yes.
If it's like, I only have this, well, okay, we could take that and we can do this and make it exactly what you need.
And if you want to find clients when you're ready, I would recommend going to the town halls that run every
Mhm.
week. And what Jeremy does in those, he hosts them and basically goes through unanswered requests from the hub and tries to delegate them to someone. So you'll hear about both like things that might be close to you, but also like international projects. I know there's a couple ones spinning up. And like ultimately with those, what we'd love to do is like send printers there and training and let them run their own machines.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of ways to get involved about like sharing your expertise with others. And the welding is super, everybody in makerspaces wants to do welding stuff. That's super cool.
Yeah, it's good how it's a good skill to have, that's for sure.
Yeah, we are just getting started a little bit with metal stuff.
Yeah.
Like we're starting an engineering program. We'll have our first incoming class next year. And so we've got our first like metal CNCs up, and there's a lot of interest in upskilling in metal fab side of things. We're basically a plastic shop today.
Yeah. The skills are transferable to some
Yeah.
extent, at least from a design aspect.
Yeah.
But metal opens up a whole other world of possibilities.
Yeah.
Higher cost though, but
You know, I'm sure that as you go to more town halls, people would love to pick your brain about how you can use the underlying logic of some of these open source devices
yeah.
and then make them a little more adaptable. I know there are some crazy mad scientist type people working on the e-NABLE platform. And one of the craziest devices I've seen was using bike chain for the fingers. For someone that
Hmm.
cleans boats, where they could actually, like in seawater, use it to scrape the barnacles off of a boat.
That's awesome.
Really cool, like much different like wear and tear
Turn
and strength.
turn the prosthetic into the tool itself
Yeah,
versus holding a tool with the prosthetic. I like
yeah.
that. I just in my mind, I just got like just like this vision of like go-go gadget fingers where his like fork and spoon pops out of his fingers.
Totally.
So what's the best step for somebody starting out? Like I'm printing the first one now. I'm gonna order
Yeah,
the build kit.
yeah,
I reached out, I looked on the map. There is no local chapter.
yeah.
The closest one is a province over, which is roughly 14 hours. So
Yikes. Okay.
I emailed them and I asked them if they need help with anything, if there's anything I need to know, if they need my printers for something, if they want to say, hey, I need 30 of these, can you make these for us
Yeah.
and ship them to us? I would. But I haven't got a response back, which opens
That's
with these kind
pretty
of
normal.
it's
Yeah.
perfectly normal, yeah.
So
So
I would say go to a town hall and you'll probably
okay.
find like an international project that inspires you that you could participate in. And a lot of times that is mailing stuff. The other thing you could do, any of these chapters, and Jonathan may have ideas too, who just joined us. But one of the things I think that's helpful, like in my students now, every semester in teams in one of these intro classes are assembling e-NABLE as a bias towards doing something positive with engineering, but also it's more about consuming and producing documentation, right? Like we all consume documentation and hopefully we all write and critique and make better documentation. But the output of that class accidentally is 5 or 6 nice Phoenix V3s per semester. And so what I've been trying to do is like send those to upstart makerspaces as touchstones. Because I think anytime you're working with real clients, it's nice to have the menu on the table about like this
Yeah.
is what we could make. And so sometimes just having like even one that's not fit to an individual as like a touchstone for
Mhm.
another group that's like that has too many clients and not enough makers. So if you make really nice ones, I'm sure people would love to like use them as part of their like finding client thing.
Yeah.
One of the things I challenge my students to do that might be fun is adapt it to your own physiology, right? Like you might see an opportunity to remix a couple designs together and release your own design. Like one of the highest tiers is like make a tool that helps others make tools.
Mhm.
And you with two upper limbs, you should be able to adapt them to your own physiology and use them even better. So I think it helps. Like one of the things I wanted to do is like live in one for a couple days and see how my built environment isn't adapted well and how the platform might improve.
Mhm.
So I think challenges like that, but I think you found the right way in, like the calendar of events. And the biggest event I think for you at the stage you're at, it would be the town hall to find problems to go after.
Yep. I'll make a note of that.
And I would say
And
like
those are,
and the challenges aren't just making devices directly for clients. I think that is like the highest bar, but there's other stuff like my team right now is working on metadata schema for sorting and searching through devices and thinking about the hierarchy about like which parts that have been like put into the device catalog, which designs they inherit from, and how we can like remix those and fit them together. So it's really information design, which is a big
yeah.
challenge. And then like with a global effort with like, I don't know, thousands of volunteers, how do we make sure that we're capturing the learnings and putting the best devices forward? It's part of
Mhm.
that problem. The other problem is, which might be really helpful, is like critiquing the onboarding process for new members as you go through it. Any ideas you
Yeah.
have about how you could better design that experience, I think would be helpful. And I think the third piece that's always challenging is matchmaking. There's a big disconnect from people that have the resources to make these devices and the recipients. And so how do we make those connections? And it's really like a global effort because there's not as many recipients in North America, but there's a lot of maker spaces and schools that are activated to make them. And then a lot of the clients, I know like Brazil, the country of Brazil has accepted e-NABLE into the national healthcare system, but there's less sites that make it. So any way to build a connection between the makers and the recipients could be an interesting design challenge also.
Is there anything in place for building, say, in North America and shipping mass quantities? Like, if I can't
Somewhat.
find anybody like
It's
local to
hard
me,
because maybe. I think the hardest thing is that like a lot of it, the design needs to be adapted to some extent. Like, right, you've seen the
yeah,
thermoforming. You can somewhat thermoform them, but that's
yeah.
within the bounds of like a little bit of fixed geometry. But maybe you see an opportunity to make like a toolbox of adaptability. Like some of this stuff can be small, medium, large, and
Mhm.
get better than a one size fits all.
Yeah.
And I would say you got to meet Jeremy and John, people like Jonathan and Sarah, who are gonna like go to a lot of meetings and hear these conversations a lot. And like you have a very unique skill set that I'm sure they'd be hungry for. One thing I would caution is people get volunteered into positions of leadership and like running a project. So if you're looking for one, that's great. Uh, but I would also be a little picky about finding one that you actually want to like see all the way through.
Yeah. Well, I don't definitely don't want to start something and all of a sudden it's like, well, you know what? I'm tired of this. I don't want to do it anymore. Life gets in the way and you kind
Yeah,
of abandon it. I don't want to do that. So I'm trying to start small.
yeah,
Get one built for sure. I don't see any issues with doing that. And then if I can't get chapter linked up with the chapter that's close to me, start one and then try to find people local to me is kind of my
yeah.
I have my wife works in healthcare, so I have
Cool.
access to the children's hospital. I
Yeah.
have friends that are in various uh positions where they deal with disabilities, so they're going to kind of help through that, maybe link me up with people,
Yep.
stuff like that.
Totally.
So I'm hoping
And
I
and
can
one
gain
thing
some
is
traction.
like more on the like mechanical engineering side, you might see opportunities. I don't think anyone has taken a fresh look at devices from 5 to 10 years ago with the best practices on modern machines.
Mhm.
And like from like I know that there's a couple groups that are just doing like strength testing, like brake
Yeah.
testing about like where are the weak points and how can we optimize the settings on these new super fast like Core XY machines to get the most,
Mhm.
like what vendor are we buying the plastic from? What are exact slice settings? And then where does it fail? I think is another interesting space.
Yeah. That was another thing I kind of wanted to bring forward to other people too, is people starting out have a place where you can be like, okay, this is what the machine I'm using, this is the material I'm using, this is my STL code, this is my slicer, I'm using this wall, this temp, this layer speed, this is what I'm using, this is what I found for orientation wise. Because I noticed even looking at some of the pictures that other people have made, I could see
Yeah.
the layer lines, and looking at the way they printed it, I can tell where it's going to break
Yeah.
without even seeing it.
Yep.
Um,
That's super
the
valuable. The
the
super valuable way
mention
to
people
contribute.
using, yeah, I can see, I saw people using PLA for this, but then I'm looking at it, well, you did the pins in PLA too. I probably wouldn't do that. Maybe the
Yeah.
part that goes around here, the cuff in PLA, that's fine because you're thermoforming it. So it might actually anneal and get a little less brittle,
Yep.
like PLA tends to get. It might get a little more flexible like PETG. And then I'm thinking like the pins, PETG, nylon, something like that, something
Yeah.
with a little bit more flex. So when
Yep.
it goes into those holes, it doesn't just shear off and break.
Yes. And then get brittle and get smaller over
Yeah.
time. Yeah, and wear
Yeah.
out. Totally. I think those are like you could even have like a optimizing your design like meetup that you run where people bring designs and you critique them. Like I think anything you see an opportunity for, the organization is hungry to find space to have the conversation.
It's great.
But yeah, I would start with making a couple hands and breaking them. And I like all five of those top five devices. I think it's worth making one of each and seeing what because some look more aesthetically pleasing, some are more mechanically functional,
Yeah.
some are more scalable and adaptable, and there's not a one size fits all.
Yeah. Yeah. My plan is to make this first one and I'm going to give it to my kids and I'm going to say, play with us.
Yeah, that's cool.
If it's going to break, it's going to break with kids playing with it. So if
And
it's going to kids, I would like kids to be the ones messing with it.
this is my number one theory of change for this open source assistive tech is if you get young people, if you get it in the imagination of young people, they're going to inherit a terrible set of problems in the next century. Any bias towards solving mechanical, technical engineering problems and using those skills to leave the world better than they found it in some way. If you can get that into people when they're very young, they might have a chance at solving some of the problems they've inherited better.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Jonathan, you've heard our conversation. I know you've been to a bunch of these meetings. Any other advice you'd have for Mike?
No, I think I apologize. I didn't hear Mike's history at all, but I think it sounds a lot similar to kind of where I'm coming from. I'm a manufacturing engineer, so when I started with e-NABLE about a year and a half ago, I was drawn to making devices and delivering to recipients and stuff like that. Um, I've kind of gotten pulled into I guess you could call it like a sustainability consultant type of role now. I've been doing a lot of documentation for the organization on how we're doing processes and stuff like that. So I think there's a lot of opportunity aside from just making devices and um, being involved in a chapter. So the more meetings you can get to, the more integrated into the community you can be. You start making ties.
Totally. And
So
did you get volunteered into a lot of projects too? I know that happens.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
so would your guys' suggestion be to focus on linking up with a chapter or possibly having to start my own once I get my feet underneath me, or spending more time through like the hub
I
and
think it
connecting
depends.
with
I
other
would
people?
start with the hub because it gives you the
Okay.
broader context. And I think the chapter is the highest goal. But the hardest
Yeah.
part of the chapter isn't organizing the makers, it's organizing a relationship with recipients that's not a one and done. It's not a we ship it
Yeah.
and we never hear from you. It's
Yeah.
use it for a month, come back to the table, let's redesign and improve it. Those are the most successful chapters. And it's a not a maker problem, it's a people coordination problem.
Yeah. Okay.
And if you can do that, I think that is the highest goal of the org, but it's only one of the
Yeah.
ways to contribute.
Yeah.
And
I
like
already
someone
have
You could also do a
Uh,
combination. I think it starts from making devices. Like that's the base literacy that we all have to be on the same page of how
yeah,
it works. And you
yeah,
might see opportunities to improve a lot of that, both for clients, but then to contribute those learnings back to better designs for the community.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I'd be
Uh,
curious too if there's like you're like if this one part was machined out of metal and we like incorporated that, it would improve the designs
yeah,
vastly. And then my group would love to tag that as a top level asset in if you have access to a CNC, mill this bracket and it saves all these traditional
yeah.
breakpoints.
I'm one of the things I was looking at was more so using the printers themselves to make maybe silicone molds.
Yeah.
Because there are a few parts I looked at, like, well, that could be made out of like a high, maybe like a high durability silicone. Well, cheap way to get a mold, 3D print it,
Yeah.
stuff like that. I'm looking, uh, metal is there. I'm also looking at ways to maybe incorporate metal brackets into the print, like a pause layer.
Yeah, that's super
Bracket goes
cool.
in, prints over top,
Yep.
stuff like that. Magnets, hidden
So much
fasteners.
easier to do now in modern slicers too. Like all of that's very
Oh,
achievable.
absolutely. Absolutely. I got stuff that I made for like my desk that as plastic alone it wouldn't hold, but pausing it and putting a metal plate and then so you have the aesthetic of whatever you want for the plastic on the outside, but
Yeah.
you got the strength of the steel hidden inside the plastic
Yeah,
that nobody
that's
sees.
composite layering type stuff is super
Yeah,
cool.
absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know if that's been richly investigated by anyone that I've heard of uh, around this stuff.
I literally looked into this and it's been a day and a half since I kind of found your guys' site. So I kind of scoured the site. I watched the videos. I kind of looked, and I already put out some feelers if there's any people local that need the prosthetics,
Yep.
at least so I can at least get that rolling in the background while I'm getting my feet underneath me with everything else. It's kind
Yeah.
of how I tackled this.
One of the other things that we learned, we met a whole variety of people with upper limb variety of differences, and there's sort of two sides to finding clients. Someone that's older that's lived with an upper limb difference for a long time might have opinions about what they want. Like they know the features that they want, and they
Yeah.
might have a traditional prosthesis that you can augment in some way and be like, "Oh, I want one for this activity and this use, and it really needs to do that." That's really helpful, I think, as a designer. The other side is I think e-NABLE is predominantly like half of the clients are kids. And kids often
Yeah.
don't know what they want, but it's about having them use that whole side of the body more and having something that they want to show off more. And I think
Yeah.
those are very different design challenges. One, you get more feedback and might make it like a more resilient device. One, it's just about excitement and making it cool and fun to use.
Well, I mean, if you can make the aesthetic, I mean, if a kid's needing this, he's gonna have a rough time. There's no way. Like, gonna have a rough life, kid. So if you can make it aesthetically pleasing, like a Spider-Man logo, Deadpool,
Yeah,
make it look like an
so
Iron
cool.
Man fist or something like that, or even like a green Hulk fist, like that's cool.
So I think, yeah, there's a ton of different ways in, and it depends on your interests and also on like who in your local community. Are you working hyper local? Are you part of a
Yeah,
more global conversation? Like how you define that community.
yeah. Right now, I'm trying to just keep it local because there's nothing
Yeah,
local.
totally. What
So
an
I mean,
opportunity.
yeah, that's what I mean. Like, on like the business side of it, I if I think of it as like a business,
Yeah.
it would be like, okay, there's this niche that isn't being filled. I don't know if the demand is there.
Yep.
I really don't, but that's why I have feelers out with people that I know that work at the Children's
Yep.
Hospital, different disability clinics and whatnot. So hopefully they can kind of put it out there that, hey, maybe this might be something that could be a possibility in a
Well,
few
and then
months,
there's people
few
like
weeks.
Dr. Rick Williams, who's in Florida, that's doing crazy stuff. Like he's taking the underlying logic of e-NABLE and he's adapted it to a glove for ALS patients. So like a neoprene glove goes under it and he's put motors and it flexes the hand so they have less muscle atrophy, so they can use their hands
Mm.
better. So like the underlying architecture has all these parallel things. He also he makes guitars for people who have one upper limb, like a single hand playable guitar. So
Oh,
he
nice.
does a lot of instrument work, and then he works with a local doctor at their local hospital with ALS patients. but it's like you might find a niche like that that you can't figure out till you explore your local community.
Yeah. Has anybody looked into like wildlife or the animal side of things for this?
There's definitely an interest in that. It's parallel. I know like the prostheses for dogs and cats, like wheelchairs, things like that exist, but it's not in the central. It's yeah, I don't think you'll find those on the e-NABLE hub. But it's sort of
Okay.
like there's other like 3D model repositories that are very parallel things, and for that it's the same thing. Just we've done our students have done things like that where they work with a vet or like someone who has a research protocol established already, so that we're working less directly for the animal and more for the vet clinic, making tools for that clinic.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a vet college just down from our children's hospital. So when I was
Oh, I
driving to
bet they would
one,
be super excited.
yeah, I saw one, I saw the other. I'm like, hmm, could save the drive across town if I have to go to both places. So
Yeah. No, and I'm sure if you sit down and like show them some of the things you've made, they would be enthusiastic about figuring
mhm.
out ways to collaborate. That's been a lot of our
Yeah,
way in. I find like I have a strong belief on no prototype, no meeting.
yeah,
But if you bring a prototype to the meeting, like lots of crazy conversations come out of it.
yeah. Well, they could pick it apart and be like, well, this works, this doesn't work. What if we do this? And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden that prototype becomes a prototype for six other prototypes
Yeah,
that maybe weren't even, in your on your radar at first.
totally.
Hmm.
Jonathan, I'm wondering what you're working on. If there's anything you want to talk about today.
Not necessarily. I can speak to the veterinarian side of stuff
Totally,
that actually.
totally.
I recently, so my sister-in-law is a vet tech in South Dakota, so a couple states over, but I recently got in touch with their veterinarian and kind of got on their short list of um, potential potential opportunity for like a 3D printed prosthetic. I printed off like a 4 inch by 4 inch square. I think it was like a quarter inch thick of the various materials when I first met up with them. That was a nice, um, promotional thing to say this is
Yeah,
materials we can use. So,
super
just a
cool.
couple ideas. There really isn't much framework around e-NABLE. This is how you get in touch with people. It's really kind of a individual case basis of you figuring out how to reach out to what you want to be involved in.
Very self-driven.
Yeah, exactly.
And then a lot of it is like there's a lot of serendipity on the hub. Someone posts something and no one knows how to help them, and then Jeremy introduces you on email and that turns into a project.
Yeah.
I would also say an exciting thing right now is that there's a series of grants going on through Lumio where if you want to do something more ambitious, you can apply for grant funding and the whole community votes on it.
Okay.
So there is a platform that and you'll see those posted on the hub, but there is money available if you have ideas to build new things. And I know Sarah's working on one of those right now, right?
Uh,
Oh, sorry, you're breaking up a little bit. Oh, sorry, I don't think we can make out your audio right now. Well,
can you
oh,
hear me
there you
now?
go. Yes, that's much better.
Okay. Um, okay, so yes, I am not an engineer. I'm a writer, so I just had a proposal go through to create a press kit for e-NABLE, including an issue brief, with um, comprehensive details of e-NABLE's history and mission, and then some articles for the website about different things that chapters around the world are doing. And I have traveled a lot this year, and I've gotten to meet up with chapters in Turkey and Singapore and Portugal. So um yeah, I'll be creating a press kit, and if you have a great idea and want to come up with a proposal, feel free to reach out. I think, thank you. Ian is posting links, and you can see information about templates and example proposals that have passed and information that needs to be included. I will say that, I have seen a lot of requests from new members and new volunteers just asking for general funding to help them get started or to help get a new chapter off the ground and purchase supplies and things like that. And we do not do that. But if you have a great new idea, that can help to serve the whole community and kind of move things forward in a new way, that like would take a considerable amount of time and labor or has very specific costs involved, that's when it would be a good idea to come up with a proposal and share it with the community. And everyone votes on it, so people can let you know if they think the project is really valuable and they want to see it move forward, or if they think that there are, some issues with it and things that need to be changed or further developed before it can be supported. So, yeah.
And that whole conversation is very transparent. So I put the upper link, I put Sarah's press kit. I put what I'm working on now with 2 students that are just getting paid hourly to do a project. And you can see the comments. People have a lot of strong feedback always, which is very helpful to make them better. And I think there's been like half a dozen of these proposals in the current round of funding, which is new in the last year or two, and is only like half allocated. And there's been cycles of this for many years. I think Lumio is the best platform for voting and vetting all of these things that we've ever done.
Very good. Yeah, it looks interesting. I'm gonna have to give that a really closer read.
Mike, since you're new, do you want to see our makerspace here at Brandeis? We have 5, but I could take you upstairs to our primary one.
Absolutely.
So, okay, I might lose you on the Wi-Fi as I go up the stairs.
Yeah.
But I'm down here in my office. Let me change this, which is, how do I adjust my background? Which we do some backroom fabrication in, so I'm running a couple machines right now, but just surrounded by prints and post-it notes. And then I'm below a Starbucks, and above a Starbucks is a makerspace. But we've got a lot of like makery stuff here.
Oh, nice.
Oh, and one of the things that got us involved in that NIH thing was we made a lot of PPE during the pandemic. Like we work with
The
local
visors and
nonprofits.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
when the world shut down, a lot of us were still with the fabrication tools, and we produced a lot of. And one of the things my group did again was we made some like mainly visors that we were comfortable with, but we also vetted every design that was on the NIH's 3D print exchange. We printed like 1 or 2 of to learn about materials. And one thing I got really interested in with that project was stacking. Like if you're one technician running a bunch of machines, you don't want to be there every hour. How can I be there
Yeah.
once a day? And like, so then have like a gap or a temperature change or something so I can stack objects.
Support material in between that's non-binding.
Something.
Yeah.
So this is the living room of the university, a seating space. And every good living room needs a garage. So this is a makerspace that's been open for about 10 years. Hello, I'm bringing a tour through. It's okay. So yes, an electronic tour.
Yeah.
So in here, we've got what most people walk into this space for is all digital fabrication, but first line of defense are Prusa Minis. So we've got about 20 Prusa Minis, and our uptime
Great
with these
machine.
has been fantastic. So I don't even see any red tags today. So it's amazing. We have a workshop people can sign up for. Daniel works for us and is on shift. I can tell because he's wearing an apron.
Hey, Daniel.
It's true. We're running open hours right now, so it's
Cool.
anyone can come in and work on projects if they'd like, and if they don't know what to do, we'll help them. Yeah.
So we
Nice.
have, hand tools, some enders, some modified enders, some nice workstations. And then we do have a little bit of laser cutting, but our most popular stuff has been vinyl and sewing. So we're doing much more fabric arts. Our most popular workshop right
Interesting.
now is intro to sewing, where students make pajama pants. And that's like full every week.
I remember doing that in high
We do
school.
have some bigger printers. So this is our biggest volume we can do in one go.
Wow.
You might recognize this file. It's like a popular.
Yeah. Ran in vase mode.
And then our e-NABLE chapter is also a bunch of clubs have their stuff here. So we've got box of hands being assembled. And then we have a lot of interest in different materials. So this room has become PLA only, mainly for uptime, but we do, all the squishy TPU stuff. Some like crazy TPU prints where it's like hard in one direction, but very squishy
Yeah.
in the other one.
Viable. Yeah.
And so this place is right outside our library, the Snowy Day, mainly for fabrication. We have another electronics space, we have a digital scholarship space, and an engineering space. So slightly specific tools. But anyone can come borrow any of the tools. And this room is card swipe accessible. So a lot of times it's till like 2 a.m. or 24/7. And we have a huge student staffing model.
Nice spot you got there. I like that.
So this has been a 10-year project. And one of the first projects before we had a space that we saw was e-NABLE. So John Schull, one of the co-founders, showed us a hand and we were like, that's the type of work we want to do here. And the club our local chapter has been big and small. It's gone back and forth. And it's currently transitioning leadership again. I think it's always like people get really enthusiastic and then we have a 4-year cycle where everyone leaves every 4 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's hard to stay on the same thing over and over again for multiple years. I can understand that. And it keeps ideas fresh if you cycle leadership.
Yes. And
New
now
thoughts, new opinions.
the person that founded this has Liz Washington has now gone on to prostheses medical school. So now we've got some people actually like on the other side, like the medical side of the practice, who can come give advice, which has been really cool.
That's awesome.
Jonathan, I don't know if I've ever walked you through here before.
Yeah, I think we walked through a time or two.
So I'm more and more in the classroom. I'm really interested in like using these tools for lesson design. Like how do we build a workshop for a class? And I teach between engineering and business. So half the time it's like, as engineers, what can we get out of e-NABLE in a project? And the other part is like for an MBA student, like what are the like some of the business learnings or about design for manufacturing that would be helpful for their careers. So I do like to use the open source hardware as a lens into a bunch of different things.
Interesting.
Do you know if you have any local maker spaces, Mike, near you?
We do. They're very vast. They do everything from pottery to sewing to woodworking, welding, machining.
Super cool.
They do 3D printing. I tried to hook up with them one time to be like, hey, do you need help on the metal or the 3D printing aspect? And they're kind of a closed off group. They don't really accept people. They'll accept you as a member, but not as a
Can't develop
helping
programs.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, that's fine. I don't need to join your space as a maker. I have my own space for that, but I was just trying to
So are
help
your
them.
machines just home personal use machines?
My printers?
Yeah.
I have a business. Like I have
Oh,
my
super
day
cool.
job, and then it's a side business. It started out as a just why everyone buys a printer, just play around because they're cool.
Yeah.
And then it kind of grew from that where I've found a problem, especially in the industry I'm in with robotics and stuff. There's a lot of stuff where, okay, you can buy this part, but it's going to cost you $1,000.
Yeah.
And you got to order from overseas, and then it might take 3 weeks to get it. Okay, well, I can print that part in 3 hours for $2.
Super cool.
So I'm trying to my side business doesn't really do like the flexi toys and stuff like that that a lot of people gravitate. I do more of the prototyping.
Yep.
You have a problem, I want to solve it. This
Yeah.
isn't working. I want to make that work for you by doing this. That's kind of what I
Super
gravitate
cool.
towards. And
What
that's why this
CAD
whole
tools do
enable
you like?
thing.
Do you have like
Was that
do you have preferred software? What CAD tools do you like?
Fusion?
Your
I've
Fusion, yeah.
I started on Fusion and I was going to switch to SolidWorks after they just released their new versions. And then the guy actually in the office across from me, he uses SolidWorks,
Yeah.
but he's having all kinds of problems. So I'm going to stick with Fusion for now.
We'd love to be in SolidWorks. We just don't have the skills yet. But their
Yeah.
North American headquarters is like less than 5 miles from where I'm sitting. They're like our closest big company. So we're trying to understand their software and be able to teach with it, but we're still probably a year out. And we support tool agnostic. We support probably 20 different drawing tools. But I'd love to be able to teach a little more in SolidWorks. Today we are
Yeah.
in Fusion for the coursework, mainly because of the open educational resources. But I do think as an industry tool, SolidWorks is like a good standard tool as well. But tool
It's probably
agnostic.
it's probably the most widely recognized, as
Yeah.
I would say,
We're
for
using
these kind
Rhino
of
for more and
aspects.
more cheats in between things, like draping meshes and things with the NURBS engine that we can't do with parametric solid engines, which has been cool to unlock some stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like one of our examples is with that Phoenix V3. You know, you're supposed to like heat up a bunch of water to do the thermoforming,
Yeah.
like really hot water. The way our classrooms are set up, it's not safe to have like a big bin of boiling water. So one of our students, TAs, helped us use Rhino because they were a Rhino expert to drape a mesh and make a like a big PET block that we can put the flat thing above, use a soldering reflow iron to heat up, and then smush into with clamps. And then we're just using the soldering tools we had in the room anyways. And then we're printing in PLA, but we have a PETG, like 100% infill block that doesn't have the heat mass that the little thin piece does. So it doesn't really take any of the heat. It's been a cool cheat to get a really nice curve on the cuff.
Out of curiosity, why didn't you just throw the PLA plate on the bed of one of your printers and crank up the bed heat temp?
So we've done that, but it doesn't quite get the right, it doesn't get as much curviness as having a
Okay.
negative and a positive that sandwiches it in the curve.
Yeah.
So just having the one side of the curve, you get a little ovaling, and this
Yeah,
gave a
it'll
really nice radius on it.
yeah, we do that in the steel industry a lot too. Sometimes if you just bend a radius, you get the cooling in different areas. It doesn't
Yeah.
cool exactly even, so it's hot, hot, hot. Okay, now I hit a cool spot and it kind of pops up over here. Yeah. That was one of the things I
And
looked
that's
at
one
when I
that we
saw
haven't released that. Like I'm not even doing my job right. I need to like take that file that we've been using as a clamp. And
Yeah.
then that's what we want to have is a way to be like, all right, I'm using this hand. What are all the assets on the hub that inherit that could help me with making this platform a little better?
Yeah, and that was the first thing I looked at when I saw that the tutorial for making the cuff piece was, okay, I can see why because it's got the tabs that lock into the holes to help
Yeah.
hold the shape. But the first thing that popped into my mind is why isn't it a positive and negative die?
Super cool. The other thing I think is if you've played with them, I think you need more mechanical advantage there as a test piece. Like that, I think that might be good once it's totally strapped up and used as a device. But so many of these first ones, it's being used as a teaching tool to understand the platform for makers like us. And for if I want to slip my hand in it and use it, I need more mechanical advantage. I need that circle like another inch or two gapped out, so I have the leverage to really grab onto things.
Absolutely.
So I've been thinking a lot about that as like one of the next personal projects I want to do once we finish this sorting the designs is like maybe the design that you learn how open source hardware in the e-NABLE ecosystem works is not the exact same design that you would make for a client. Maybe it's got some tweaks to help it as a teaching tool and to help it as like a showcase tool.
Okay.
Because the last thing we want is to manufacture a ton of these to go to landfill, right? Like it would
Yeah.
be better if we would hold on to them and use them as touchstones to either shop with real clients or to help people understand how to build really good stuff.
Yeah. Or even just product testing.
Brake testing, super cool.
Yeah. Okay.
So hopefully this gave you some ideas about the edges. Think of this as like defining the edges of the space and then fill in the middle.
It's got me moving in the direction I want. The direction that I kind of thought I was going to move in is still the direction I think I'm going to go in, but this just helped me know that I'm moving where I should be moving, and that just making these and giving them out isn't the end of it.
Yeah.
Like you said, the designing, so taking those designs that are already made and making them better. Like in my mind, I thought about that, but at the same time, like, well, I'm just starting. Like, I want to just get this ball rolling first.
Yeah. No, I
But
think
it's
that's
nice
the
to know,
underlying, that's the bar set that we all have to get to
yeah.
for sure.
And it's nice to know that this the making of what's the like those models that are already made. It's nice to know that that's not the end of it. Like it goes
Yeah.
beyond that.
Yeah. No, and I think like our aspirational goal on like a 5-year horizon would be for one of our student groups to remix and release their own design that accomplishes a gap, like covers a gap in the current design catalog. Like there's lots of little gaps from like teaching tools to touchstones to particular physiology to particular occupational therapy task completion. I think there's lots of opportunities to contribute something back in the design space.
Yeah. I'm definitely gonna be touching base with a friend of mine that works in occupational therapy for amputees and stuff, and I'm gonna go to them and be like, this is what I'm doing. What do you think is the missing link here? I want to get obviously I'm gonna get the first model printed off first, so I can be like, this is this.
Missing link
What do we
here.
do to make, yeah, what makes this better?
Yeah.
What can I do to make this better than what it is?
The other big sea change that I've seen in the last like even 3 years is like the quality and uptime of the machines has gotten amazing. Like you were saying, running bamboos, like they're so fast, they're so easy. The accessibility barrier for using the tools is way lower. So and the cost per quality is way, I mean, it's so much better than what used to be out there. So I wonder if
Yeah.
there's also an opportunity if that changes the game a little bit around like are we delivering a device or are we delivering a tool to make devices like to the client? Because if the
Yeah.
printers are breaking $200 and the quality is good and the device costs 50 of parts for us to make once we add the screws and everything, like it's almost like do we empower the person in need with the tool to make their own tools?
Yeah. But you have to have specific knowledge
Yeah.
to do that.
The other side that I think is exciting there is like scanning. We're all starting to have like these scanners in our pockets, like phones are doing it.
Yeah.
And so much of it, like if you've seen the way you actually do fitted, it's like from a photo, like if you get a couple of angles of photos,
Yeah, I seen
it's
that.
so close to a portable scanner that has the fidelity to like blow that out of the water.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I'm eventually going to be looking into is moving into scanning for automotive, industrial. Just
Super
cut
cool.
down on the modeling time because that's the biggest thing. Like, yeah, it might take me 3 hours to make this part, but it's going to take me 50 hours to design it.
Yeah. And then how do we go from scanned mesh into parametric model? Our favorite tools today are the RTEC scanners. We also really like Faro systems are obviously amazing, but very like prohibitively expensive. But I think the same thing that we've been seeing coming out of Shenzhen with the printers is starting to happen with the scanners. So like these are our two like super high-end vendors, but I can almost beat them now with the RevoPoint stuff.
You guys use the RevoPoint stuff?
We just got our first set of 4 different ones that we've been teaching classes with this semester, and the software is now free. It runs on our students' computers. RTEC Studio is a much better software. It's more powerful. It does a better model for sure. But if we can get 80% of the way there for 5% of the cost, that's a huge like game changer for us.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
Yeah, the
I've been really
RevoPoint's what
impressed
I'm
with the
looking at.
RevoPoint quality. If you're just printing, it's good enough for printing, and the software is now like you can put it on any computer. Like you don't need a special
Yeah.
computer to run it. And you might like that the Miraco for some of what you're talking about. So I like a tethered scanner more because then you're not like locked into a software ecosystem where they stop giving updates someday. You've got a USB device that sort of stays evergreen. We've got scanners that are like pushing 10 years. But that Miraco scanner that they have specifically does a lot of these use structured light. You know, they're projecting a grid and looking at deformation. They're doing some photogrammetry on top for like color detail. So usually it's like video capture where you sweep a video over it. This Miraco is one of the first low-cost handheld ones I've seen that you can do stills to a line. So you can reach it under the car dash into a spot where you can't like see it and click, like get that as a reference drawing. Oh, cool. We've got Jonathan's scanner.
I've seen that. Huh.
Yeah, that one I bought it right after their Kickstarter, so it was on a really good sale. But sub $500, it's done everything from car parts to industrial stuff at work, so it's always been accurate enough for me.
That's super cool. I haven't actually played with that, so now I need to dig under it.
Yeah, I'm
The
gonna
I
have a
teach in the
closer look at
most.
that one for sure.
Uh, I
My
teach
only
in
complaint
Microsoft
about that one.
mostly.
Sorry, go
Oh,
ahead.
what? Go ahead.
My only complaint about that one is the proprietary software that they use
Yeah.
requires admin privileges. So like I have to bring in my personal laptop when I want to use it at work.
Oh,
But yeah, I'm sure there's some other software that it would be able to use too. But for the workflow, I use Fusion for that, and it works really well.
Super cool.
does it look good when you drop the scan part into Fusion? Is there a lot of cleanup afterwards?
Yeah, there's some cleanup in their proprietary software, and then once you export it over, it looks good.
I think this is one of the most exciting curves in this whole thing. Is like you don't have to draw everything anymore. Like the reference of a scan is super helpful.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that anyone's written doc on how to use these new like sub $500 high quality scanners with the e-NABLE platform for adaptability. Like that would be a super cool, even just like a YouTube half-hour tutorial that I think people would use a lot.
Yeah, well, for that price, I mean, it's kind of hard to say no to that,
Definitely game
Really.
changer.
especially if you wanted to accurately model somebody's at their wrist
Yep.
versus pulling
Cool. Well,
pictures and modeling off the.
we're about to hit the top of the hour, but we're back here every month. We have like this new member education conversation. I love hearing about new tools. I definitely got to unpack this Moose scanner, learn a little bit more about it. But this is my favorite thing. It's like learning about the tools everyone else is using and the ways in. And hopefully you can find some interesting projects. And I would recommend those community meetings that Jeremy hosts, the town halls.
Yeah, I will definitely be checking those out. I'm gonna have a closer look at that calendar and see what else is coming up and just try and jump in on whatever I can.
Awesome. I'm putting my email in here too. Always happy to geek out on settings and kit. And hopefully we'll see you around at future meetings.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the time, guys.
Good to talk to you, Jonathan. Thank you, Sarah, as always.
See you guys.
Nice to meet you, Mike.
You too.